Hello, welcome to another very quick Wine with Tweedy video. The dinner is probably burning in the oven, so I'm going to have to do this at some pace. Quite an unusual wine here today. You may have noticed that my two main wine interests are English sparkling and Burgundy. So Pinot Noir from one particular part of France, or traditional method sparkling from England. Now then, this I suppose is sort of a bizarre love child of the two in a way. It is a still red Pinot Meunier from England, from Kent in fact. Gusbourne is the producer, and this is their 2020 Pinot Meunier. I have done previous videos where I've talked briefly about Pinot Meunier. It's the sort of the third grape in Champagne, the classic cuvée of Champagne. It doesn't often get much mention on the final billing. We talk about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir a lot. For still red wines, Burgundy is all Pinot Noir, and for still white wines, Burgundy is all Chardonnay. With Pinot Meunier, not as far as I'm aware used at all in Burgundy. It is used in tiny quantities in Champagne, but I think with the sort of English wine renaissance, if that's the right word for it, a lot of English wine producers have started to think, well, perhaps we can do something more with Pinot Meunier. Perhaps it doesn't always have to be this sort of third wheel in the classic Champagne cuvée. So perhaps we can make even interesting still wines with it. Gusbourne, of course, make sparkling wine as well, based in Kent. Okay, so 2020 Gusbourne Pinot Meunier, and it's from their Mill Hill East vineyard. I don't know if you can read that on there. Not to be confused with the station, the tube station of the same name in North London. It's in Kent, I believe. Sort of by Pinot Noir standards, it's on a sort of, I'd say lighter side. It's dark, but actually slightly translucent. And what do we have on the nose here? The official tasting notes on the back say a perfumed nose of dark chocolate, tea tree, and dark red fruits dominated by Morello cherry. Getting something in the kind of vague cherry family there, but quite different from the sort of the way cherries expressed in Burgundy in Pinot Noir, for example. The mouthfeel just worlds apart from Burgundy. Almost has this very, very slight hint of, isn't really fizz, but perhaps that's a sort of subtle kind of tannic response there. Some of the still reds, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, that I'd had from Gusbourne before, I thought perhaps slightly over oaked, and that's not so evident here. This has been hanging around in my cellar for a while. I don't know if it's mellowed in the interim. Something like cherry, but it's more like, I don't quite know how to describe it. It's like, a bowl that had previously contained cherries. It's a sort of homeopathic dose of cherries. Getting a tiny bit of perfume, possibly something, a sort of, again, homeopathic dose of rose, and then also those kind of slightly kind of struck match notes that you get from what is that sort of reductive winemaking. It seems to have become, unfortunately, a fashion amongst some English wine producers. It's okay. You would struggle to choose this over a Burgundy, something from Louis Saint-Georges, say, in good condition. It's interesting. Perhaps it tells you a little bit about the terroir in Kent. As a one-off, as a sort of, a novelty, interesting wine, it's not bad. But I'm not sure I'll be rushing out to buy a case of this. You know what, I've been mulling over this over the course of this evening so far, and I think possibly my initial judgment was slightly unfair. And as Tom from Fingal Rock once made a very valid point, that with wine, expectations are really important. And if you go into a still red English wine that's sort of, well, not Pinot Noir, but Pinot Meunier, you know, close cousin of Pinot Noir, you might be forgiven for thinking, oh, you know, it has to compare to Burgundy. But it is, you know, it's a different grape, and it's grown in a very different environment with a different climate and different terroir. To think it's going to match Burgundy is just not really. It's an apples to oranges comparison, really, and it's not a fair start for the wine. And I think as this has developed with a bit more nosing and a bit more air, I think there is some interesting terroir expression here, I get these sort of rosehip kind of notes now, and particularly, you know, sort of wild rose, rosehip. It's floral, but it has this kind of very restrained, sort of subtle, kind of nuanced, kind of English countryside character to it. Actually, maybe we've got more rosehip and wild cherry here, things found in English hedgerows from the countryside. You know, if you want an absolute surefire hit of a great sophisticated red wine made from Pinot Noir or one of its close cousins, then, you know, I would still say go to Burgundy. But you know, England excels in sparkling wines, I believe. It's still sort of finding its feet with the still wines, particularly the still reds, which are obviously a bit more of a challenge in this climate. But there is definitely something interesting going on there, and there is something that's sort of actually quite uniquely English. So thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.